Welcome, friends, to a journey through the timeless wisdom of the Bible. From the iconic Sermon on the Mount to the insightful parables of Jesus, we'll uncover the ethical bedrock that underpins this sacred book. Join me as we venture into the heart of the Bible, seeking wisdom for our lives today. High atop a mountain, Jesus delivered a sermon that would resonate through history. Imagine yourselves gathered there, listening to his words echo across the ages. The Sermon on the Mount, found in the book of Matthew, chapters 5 through 7, lays out a revolutionary moral vision. It's a call to love, not just our neighbors, but our enemies as well. Can you imagine embracing such radical forgiveness? To turn the other cheek, to offer kindness in the face of adversity. These are not mere platitudes, but challenges to the very core of our being. Jesus speaks of humility, of purity of heart, of peacemaking. He urges us to hunger and thirst for righteousness, to be the salt of the earth, the light of the world. These are aspirations that reach beyond the superficial, calling us to a higher standard of living. The Sermon on the Mount is not a set of rules etched in stone, but a compass pointing towards a life of love, compassion, and justice. It's a call to live differently, to embody the very essence of grace and mercy. He speaks of building our lives on a solid foundation, not on shifting sands. The storms of life will come, but those who hear these words and act on them will stand firm. It's a message of hope, of resilience, of finding strength in something greater than ourselves. Are we living up to the ideals set forth by the one who spoke those words so long ago? The Sermon on the Mount is a mirror reflecting our own hearts, urging us to strive for a love that knows no bounds, a compassion that embraces all. Let us carry these words with us, not as burdens, but as beacons, guiding us towards a more just and compassionate world. Jesus, a master storyteller, used parables to convey profound truths in ways that resonated with the everyday lives of his listeners. These weren't just stories, but windows into the very heart of God. Consider the parable of the Good Samaritan. A man beaten and left for dead is ignored by those who should have helped. Then a Samaritan, a member of a despised group, stops and shows him compassion. This parable, found in the Gospel of Luke chapter 10, challenges our preconceived notions of who our neighbor truly is. It's a call to look beyond social barriers, to see the humanity in everyone, regardless of background or belief. The Good Samaritan doesn't just pass by, he binds the man's wounds, takes him to safety, and pays for his care. It's a picture of selfless love, of going above and beyond the call of duty. Jesus, through this parable, redefines what it means to love our neighbor. It's not enough to simply avoid doing harm. We're called to actively seek the well-being of others, even those we might consider strangers or even enemies. The parables of Jesus are filled with such timeless wisdom. They teach us about forgiveness, about humility, about the importance of seeking what truly matters in life. For in these stories we discover not just moral lessons, but a path to living a more meaningful and compassionate life. The prophets of the Old Testament were not fortune tellers, but fiery preachers who dared to challenge the status quo. They were the conscience of their time, calling out injustice and calling people back to God. Imagine Amos standing in the marketplace, his voice booming with righteous anger, denouncing the exploitation of the poor and the complacency of the wealthy. Or Isaiah with his visions of a world transformed by peace and justice. These prophets spoke truth to power, even when it was dangerous to do so. They reminded kings and commoners alike that true worship involved caring for the vulnerable, the marginalized, the forgotten. Their message resonates powerfully today in a world still grappling with poverty, inequality, and oppression. The prophets remind us that faith is not a private affair, but a call to action, to be agents of change in the world. They challenge us to examine our own lives, our own complicity in systems that perpetuate injustice. Are we using our voices to speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves? The prophets call us to repentance, to a turning away from selfishness and greed and towards a life of compassion and justice. They offer a vision of a world where everyone has enough, where peace reigns and where all are treated with dignity. Their legacy is a challenge and an inspiration, urging us to create a world that reflects the heart of God, a world where justice and righteousness prevail. Life is a journey filled with twists and turns, joys and sorrows. And within the Bible we find a treasure trove of wisdom to guide us through life's labyrinth, the books of Proverbs, Ecclesiastes and Job. Imagine yourself sitting at the feet of King Solomon, renowned for his wisdom. He speaks in Proverbs pithy sayings that offer insights into human nature, relationships and the pursuit of a meaningful life. Proverbs reminds us that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. It's a call to humility, to recognize that we are not the center of the universe, but part of something much greater than ourselves. Ecclesiastes, on the other hand, grapples with the big questions of life, the meaning of it all, the inevitability of death, the fleeting nature of pleasure. It's a book that encourages us to find joy in the present moment, to appreciate the simple things. Then there's Job, a man who loses everything, his family, his wealth, his health, and yet remains faithful to God. Job's story reminds us that suffering is a part of life, but it doesn't have to define us. The wisdom literature offers practical advice for daily living, from managing our finances to building strong relationships. These books encourage us to seek wisdom, to learn from our experiences, and to grow in our understanding of ourselves and the world around us. They remind us that true wisdom is not about having all the answers, but about asking the right question. The New Testament, the second part of the Christian Bible, centers around the life, teachings, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. It's a story of love, sacrifice, and the promise of new life. Imagine yourself walking alongside Jesus, listening to his teachings, witnessing his miracles, experiencing the power of his love firsthand. The Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, paint a vivid portrait of this extraordinary man. Jesus challenged the religious and social norms of his day, preaching a message of love, forgiveness, and compassion. He reached out to the marginalized, the outcast, the forgotten, demonstrating that every human being has inherent worth and dignity. His teachings, like the Sermon on the Mount, offer a radical vision for how we should live, loving our enemies, turning the other cheek, going the extra mile. The New Testament also emphasizes the importance of community, of living in fellowship with other believers. The book of Acts tells the story of the early church, a community bound together by love, faith, and a shared mission to spread the message of Jesus. The letters of Paul, Peter, James, and John offer guidance and encouragement to these early Christians, addressing issues of faith, conduct, and how to live out their faith in a sometimes hostile world. The New Testament is a testament to the transformative power of faith, the enduring legacy of Jesus Christ, and the hope that we have in him. As we conclude our exploration of the Bible's moral teachings, let the wisdom of this ancient text resonate within you. The words spoken millennia ago still hold profound meaning for us today. May these lessons inspire you to live a more compassionate and just life, to be a source of light and hope in the world. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Until next time, may your path be filled with wisdom, compassion, and the pursuit of a more just and loving world.